All right, we're going over today on an article from Talmud Eser Sefirot, Part 3, Chapter 5, Median Discernment.
Median discernment. Between each two Bihona discernments, there is a median Behina discernment that contains both. Does that say number 8?
Number 3.
Number 3. Indeed, in all these four inner Bihona discernments, there is one Behina discernment that contains them all. It is a median between each two Behina discernments that could consist of both. For example, biologists write that between the still and the vegetative, there is the choral. Between the vegetative and the animate, there is the Adnai Ha-Sadeh, ledges of the field, mentioned in Masakat Kilayim, tractate of mixtures. It is like a dog that grows on the ground with its navel rooted in the soil from which it sucks its sustenance. When you cut off its navel, it dies. Between the animate and the speaking, there is the monkey. Talmud Eser, Part 3, Chapter 5.
The screen. Number 4. In much the same way, there is a median Behina between the Creator and the creature, which is the collective spiritual Behina. It is said about it, "Ye are children to the Lord your God." I said, "Ye are God." And it is said, "And God went up from Abraham." And our sages said, "The patriarchs are indeed the chariot."
Spark is returning light. 5. It means that there is a very small netzot, spark, which is godliness that extends from the last Behina, discernment, in the Creator. That netzot, spark, clothes a creature by the power of another netzot, spark, which is a very fine neshama, soul, called Yakida single. That netzot, spark, contains the roots of the four Behinot, discernments of spirituality, which are Nefesh, mind, Ruach, spirit, Neshama, soul, Haya, life.
Point in the heart. 6. Between the Bechina discernment of spirituality and the Bechina discernment of the Guf, there is also one Bechina discernment that consists of both. It is Bechinat discernment of Revat Dam, quarter of blood, of the Nefesh, soul, for it has the last Nitzot, spark, of the Nefesh, being the Ravit, quarter of the Nefesh, soul, meaning Nefesh, soul of Nefesh, soul, and hence the name Revi'it, quarter.
Life is Behina, understanding. And Netzot, spark, clothes the above-mentioned Revi'it, Dam, quarter of blood, and it is all one, as it says, for the blood is the life. Said about this Revi'it, Dam, quarter of blood. This Revi'it, Dam, quarter of blood, is the better part of all the aforementioned four Behinot discernments of the Guf, body, where each part is divided into 4.
Connection between soul and body. It is the first in the top Revi'it, quarter, from the perspective of the absolute essence of the Mokin, mind, which is the vitality inside it, being the dam, blood, that expanded them to revive them. All the roots of the above 4 Behino discernments are in that Revi'it, quarter, in the upper dam, blood, because it is the middle between spirituality and the Guf, body, and consists of both.
So here's the first diagram to summarize mostly what we talked about, at least at the beginning, where you've got the still, the vegetative, the animal, and speaking. And then you have the choral, which is between the still and the vegetative. You have the field dog between the vegetative and the animal. And then finally you have the monkey between the animal and the speaking.
Yeah, they're bridges.
Yeah. What did you think of the article?
Confusing, as usual. But I understand life is in the blood, you know, that because that's in the Torah, you know.
What I think is missing in this diagram is what we're trying to convey here is basically the next step after the speaking, which is sort of the spiritual, and then being sort of, you know, the middle between the speaking and the spiritual, sort of being the creature and the creator at once. And I don't think that's shown here.
So I made a final diagram where it's the spiritual lights of perception. So we've got, we talked about nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, and yechidah. So, and they're each trying to represent different kinds of sensations that we feel with internal power. So nefesh, which we feel after the barrier, is when we feel that sense of relaxation. And ruach, where we're in a state of ruach. Remember that state. So the idea is you can feel spirit in, even before the parsa, but you're feeling it as situations, but it's not a state you're in. So the idea is when you reach the parsa, that's when you are feeling ruach, spirit, you're in modulation, which means that unlike with relaxation, because the word nefesh comes from the word nofesh, which is like vacation, where the idea is that it just gives you a sense of like relaxation. Everything's good. There's no movement. Modulation is when you're actually enjoying the movement. You're actually enjoying it going up and down and modulating. And then when you reach Atzilut, that's when you start feeling it as protection. It actually allows you to distance yourself from external behavior. And then you're basically, you're still dependent on your emotions and your thoughts, but you're now protected from external endeavors. And then at end of correction, that's when you start feeling chaya, the life, which is basically expression when you're using internal power to manipulate situations or events, or even manipulating yourself. And then you have the final, which is the eyes not seen, where you reach yechidah, single, which is when you feel your singularity. When you're at that phase, you're basically in a situation that it doesn't really matter what your emotional state is, what your thoughts are. You just know that you're the creator. You know that you are perfect. And you feel that perfection, and you don't really care if your emotion is feeling good or bad, if you have internal power or don't have internal power. You're just so aligned, so feeling the sense of self as the creator, that even though you still have experiences and you're still emotional and thinking and stuff, but you're so tight to your core that you're in an unmovable state of perfection. So even though situations still happen outside and you're still doing expression and protection and modulation and relaxation, you never for a moment forget that you are the creator.
Wow.
Basically, end of expression is called the secrets, and the eyes not seen is, you could say that correction is secrets in potential, and then the eyes not seen is the secrets in actuality.
But like you say, it's at the end of correction. That's when you begin to live. So that's Haya, life.
Right.
And it's funny because, when I first began all this, my non-primary source Kabbalah studies, I came upon all these words, nefesh, ruach, neshama, Haya. And, it's just, this is the best explanation I've ever seen. The most sensible, logical.
It's just to give a bit more sensations instead of just the normal words.
Yeah, and they weren't connecting, like the neshama to the absolute or the ruach to the parsa.
Right.
Haya at the end of correction.
So in the median discernment, what this was talking about was what we had in the diagram of just showing how the reason I brought this whole article is many times we get this question like, are you the creator or the creature? Are you this or that? And this is to show, well, it could actually be both. Like, how could it be both? So it gives a few examples. It gives some corporeal examples. Right? We have the coral. Is it vegetative or still? It's both. the field dog, is it vegetative or animal? It's both. Is the monkey, right? We don't, many times, when people talk about it, it's like, is the monkey the origin of the human? Is a monkey human or is it animal? And it's both. So this first quote is just to open up the understanding that there can be a median discernment. And then the next one talks about there's also a median between the creator and the creature, which is basically the screen, right? Which there's all these quotes here. It means, "Ye are your children to the Lord your God," and all this stuff. And the question is, are they human or are they godly? And the answer is both. There's a median. The screen allows you to handle the will to receive and handle the will to bestow simultaneously. And then it's a spark is returning light, and Badasalam talks about this in the commentary, that of course it's not talking about a physical spark, rather it's talking about returning light, which means a desire to return to the root, to return to the creator. And the idea is that this spark is inserted in the person. Basically it's Bina in the Malchut, so it's the understanding in the kingdom. And the idea is that that's what raises a human being to sense itself actually as the creator. And the idea is that its highest point is called Yechidah, which is basically that single. And inside that Yechidah, that root, is all the sub-phases of spirituality, which are, I'm going from the top. So it's Chaya, life, Neshama, soul, Ruach, spirit, and then Nefesh, mind. So it's you've got the root, and then it contains all the subcategories as well.
And that's the active point in the heart then?
So the idea is now we're getting to the point in the heart. So the idea is that what's very nice that you get all these states after the barrier of Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, and Yechidah. But how does it work before the barrier? There must be some medium there which is going to connect us between our corporeal state, basically our body, our will to receive, and our spiritual state. Like what gets us there? So this is called Revita Dam, a quart of blood, right? Where blood is dam from the word domem, which is still, right? So it's again coming from the nefesh, the soul, or mind. And the idea is that the point in the heart is that connection. The point in the heart is that connection point between before the barrier and after the barrier.
So the point in the heart is our bridge. The screen is our bridge.
And the idea is the point in the heart is the screen, but it's a posterior.
That's our bridge.
It's the posterior of the screen. So you're basically going from the point in the heart, which goes through three evolutions. It goes through the passive point in the heart, the active point in the heart, and the intense point in the heart.
Okay.
And then
is that where you cross the barrier with the intense?
No, the intense is, so you got the passive, which is from 1.3 to 2.2. Then you have the active from 2.3 to 3.2, and then finally the intense from 3.3 until you cross the barrier. Then you get the screen. Right? Basically, the point in the heart is basically becomes the screen, and then you're dealing with nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, and yechidah as you go through the states.
Wow.
Can you give a definition of passive point in the heart, active and intense? Like what does it mean? Why is it the active one and the other passive and the other intense?
Yes. So the idea is that the passive point in the heart is when we want the meaning of life. And that's what we basically do from 1.3 to 2.2. We're looking for the meaning of life. And remember, the phases are, we go through religion, go to Kabbalah, the connection, mutual guarantee. We're all doing all this stuff just to find the meaning of our lives. Basically, why are we suffering? And just get a reason why we're suffering. It's like, the reason you're suffering is because of A, B, C, and D. Now I know why I'm suffering. Everything's fine. You're still suffering, but now you know why you're suffering. Right? So that's passive because you don't really care about power. You're wanting a passive amount of power. You're just wanting to know why are you suffering. But you don't actually want control over that suffering. Active point in the heart is when you actually want to participate in your growth. It's not like the passive point in the heart, where normally you play a very passive role in your life, in your spiritual life. It's more about annulment, canceling yourself, remove the ego, and so forth. When you go into the active, this is already when you're going to start using your ego to actually advance. So your ego plays an active participation in your advancement. You actually want power now, or you're moving towards wanting power. So you have an active part in it. When it becomes intense, that's when it becomes like most important to you. It becomes your focus in the sense of that's all you can think about, more or less, and you're just dealing with that intensely. So you just basically got a growth there of like power levels of how you're dealing with it. At the beginning, it's passive. It's like, oh, that'd be nice. Then it's active. It's like, okay, I'm interested. Then it's intense. Like, tell me more. Right? So remember, we're all talking about spirituality is basically degrees of power. And the idea is that we go through different ways we feel that power. From a passive, just wanting the meaning of life, all the way to the point where you feel that you're the most powerful being on earth. No matter what situation you're currently in. Doesn't matter if you're in happiness, sadness, frustration, doesn't matter your emotions or your thoughts, you just know you're the most powerful being on earth. And you feel it that way. You feel you're the creator, and your sense of self is so strongly tied to it that it can't be budged, and that's called freedom from the angel of death. So the idea is you can go from just wanting the meaning of your life all the way to actually feeling your life itself. What do you think?
Oh, stunning as usual. I got more clarity though. This is just what I need too.
It answered a big question for me in that I wondered what the screen was, and now I find it's the point in the heart. It's the advanced stage of the point in the heart. So that's very good to know, I think.
Yeah. But it's a bridge too.
Exactly, it allows you to handle both qualities simultaneously.
So like you say, when you cross the barrier, you get the emptiness, you like flatline emotionally. So you're not getting the sense of the creator at that time, the bestowal. Like, like you say, you're going to gain the sense of your higher self.
So what happens when you cross the barrier, you're basically in a situation where the light is dispersed, which what that actually means is that you've shifted from the sense of self as egoism to altruism. And you're in this new surrounding, and at the beginning it's empty. It's got nothing in it, right? And then the light comes in, right? Which is basically your screen is activated. And then you feel that relaxation. You feel like, wow, everything's perfect. Everything's amazing, right? And the idea is you can also feel, a modulation in the relaxation. So basically from the barrier until the parser, you're in that relaxation when you're feeling your screen. Of course, in the transitions of the different phases you go through, which are Gagalta, Absag, Man, Bon, in between you feel, again, that emptiness like you feel when you cross the barrier. But when you're actually feeling the light, that's when you're feeling that relaxation. And you can feel modulation in that relaxation, but it's still called a state of relaxation.
So that's why it's called Hafetz Hesed, because the person is feeling good throughout all the Adam Katmon world.
Repeat the question again.
Why is it called Hafetz Hesed?
Yeah, that's what's called Hafetz Hesed, because it's relaxation. You basically don't need anything. You're not connected to your ego. You basically connect to your ego when you cross the parsa, and that's why you actually go into a state of modulation, since the ego changes a lot. So you're feeling more of that changes within you. Well, at the beginning, when you just cross the barrier, you're like above your ego, so you're basically like floating in space. Sort of, it is you're not tied to something that changes all the time.
I want to know, why is the individual required for a person to cross the maximum? Why is exactly the individual required?
Why is the individual required to cross the barrier? Is that your question?
Yes.
You don't have to do anything. You're not required to do anything. If you don't feel that you want to, you don't have to. No one's forcing you. No one can force you to advance. No one can force you to want to get power over your life, get responsibility over your life. You either want to, you don't. If you don't want to, but it's like this: if you don't desire to but want to, then you have the environment to help you turn that from a wanting into a desire. But if you don't even have a wanting for it, then there's no point. The group's job is not to convince you why you need internal power. You're meant to use the group to convince yourself why you need internal power. So the group is actually passive, and you're meant to become the active factor. So normally people come into a group, they're expecting the group to do things to them. They're expecting to be passive and want the group to be active. The group is actually a very passive factor. The group does not work on people. People use the group to work on themselves.
I love that. Yeah, that because it puts the onus upon us. You know, we have to put that half shekel in.
Exactly, and that's why you can see different growth patterns of the members, right? Someone might cross the barrier much quicker, and someone might take longer. So it's not that the group is doing the work, because then it should have been uniform. It is that the group is passive, and it depends on how the person uses the environment.
Yeah, I know I'm a stiff-necked backslider.
But I have also noticed that, for example, when like sometimes I come to the group or watch a session, and I get lots of discernment. Sometimes I come to the session and I'm so into maybe some corporeal situation, and I can't even think about spirituality. So are these like ascents and descents?
Yeah, but that's why it's good these sessions are recorded. You can go back to it, Daniel. You know, it's there in the bank.
Exactly. And yeah, it is essence and descents. Well, at least at the beginning part. After the essence and descents will become not the question of if you're tied to corporeality or not, but how you relate to situations. So it becomes more of an emotional state than just, you know, what am I actually thinking of?
Just a question of clarification. In phase 2 connection, is it nephesh that you feel in the connection?
So it is that the highest light you can feel in a group is nephesh, is that relaxation. You won't feel modulation. The maximum you can feel is that relaxation, but it won't be a state. It'll just be a situation. Like you'll feel it from, let's say, 2 to 3, p.m., let's say, and then it's over. Like once you leave the group, it's over. It doesn't have a lasting effect. The idea of what we're talking about states. Right? And that's one of the things that we do in 4.3, where we understand that it's not about actions of bestowal. That's not bestowal. It should be a state of bestowal. I should be in the domain of bestowal. I shouldn't have to constantly do actions to feel that I'm worth something.
Yes, the domain.
And the idea is to shift from actions is what makes a person to just feeling that just because you exist or even don't exist, you're worth everything. And the idea is to shift from that, to go from actions of bestowal to bestowal itself, where your sense of self is just so strong with bestowal that nothing can get you out of it. You're tied to it. You're free, and then you can actually do whatever you want. You can go through emotions and you can learn things and have decence in a sense, but they're not affecting your core. They're not affecting who you feel you are, what your sense of self is, and that's the Yechidah, where you feel you're single. You're the only one that actually matters, and everybody else is just for your using. As it says, everyone's to serve me, and I'm to serve the Creator.
But this is like the shadow of God on earth, right?
Exactly. It's like you see, it's like, is it, you can either be human or the Creator. It's like, well, not exactly. There's a medium between that. So you still have a corporeal body, and there's still the creator. And the idea is that this medium, the screen, basically allows you to mediate between the two. So you can be both a creature and the creator simultaneously.
Yeah, for a pre-barrier person, this is fantastic.
So when King David writes, "Thou hast hid me from behind and from the front," or something, like a person can advance either getting discernments from the environment and like not letting the subconscious dominate my reality, or the path of pain, let the subconscious dominate my reality. So is this the path, like being conscious about getting discernments and increasing my internal power before my subconscious steps in?
Think of, there's two parts. There's alignment and expression. Alignment is when you're aligning your consciousness with your subconscious. And then expression is when you can use your consciousness to make changes in your subconscious to actually affect the world around you.
Wow. Can you repeat that, please?
So you've got alignment, which is normally called Or Chasadim, light of mercy, and you've got expression, which is normally called Or Chokhmah, light of wisdom. Alignment is when you're aligning your consciousness to your subconscious. For example, someone might think they want to be self-employed, but what their subconscious is actually desiring is to be employed. So they have an inconsistency between that they want to be self-employed, work at home, and what they actually desire is to actually work as an, as an employee. And because they have this internal fight between them, between these two desires, things don't go well. And the idea is when you align yourself, you're basically saying, okay, what I really want is not to be self-employed as I thought I wanted, but actually I want to be employed. So that's called alignment, where you're aligning your consciousness to your subconscious, right? And then you've got expression, is when you're using the consciousness. Now that you've aligned with your subconscious, now you can use your consciousness to actually actively move your subconscious to new areas and affect things. And then it will manifest outside of you in people or in yourself. So think of it, first you're tying yourself to your root, and then you can actually use your root to make changes.
Mind blown. Just letting you know.
Right. So you have to, before you use expression, I mean, you have to be in alignment first. Like,
Exactly.
right? Otherwise, it doesn't work, right?
Exactly, because if you're not tied, a bit like you're trying to drag something. So you first have to connect yourself to the thing you're dragging, and then you can drag it forward. So if you're just trying to drag something without being connected to the thing you're trying to drag, you could walk forward as much as you want. You're not going to drag the package. So
yeah, we had that session a couple sessions ago, the alignment and what is it, alignment or what?
An expression. So the idea is you first have to tie yourself to your root, tie yourself to the package, and then you can actually drag it forward with your,
Yeah, it's all logical, isn't it?
It's meant to be.
Yeah, science.
Yeah, but once, let's say, you identified sort of now that you're in alignment, you can, or that you're like sort of going in that direction, now you can create an expression to fulfill that alignment.
So the idea is that once you're aligned, you can use the expression to sort of adjust the alignment. Think of it like this. First you have to connect to, let's say, a computer, and then you can make changes in that computer. So alignment is when you're connecting to the server, let's say. So you have a client and server, let's say, example. Right? You've got your home computer and you've got like a website. So alignment is connecting from your home computer to the website, to the server. Right? That's alignment. When you have connection, and you have data going between those two, that's called alignment. Now what you can do is actually make changes in the server that will propagate down to the client and to other clients as well. Right? You can, let's say, update your records. Right? So first connecting to the record database, you could say, is alignment. and then making a change in the records, well, then when everybody else comes and sees those records, they're going to see them changed, right? Or it might even be push, where it actually pushes those changes to other people's computers as well. So that's expression. So the problem is that people want to do expression without alignment. They want to make changes without actually connecting to the server. So first connect to the server, which is the creator, connect to your source. Once you're connected, now you can make changes.
That's it. That's the crux of the matter right there. They're trying to make changes without being connected.
Well, I do want it, but only for a short period of time. But I'm like scared of having to, or not hurting her feelings after a few days pass, and tell her, no, I don't want to. So how does this, how can I process it via the path of Torah?
Well, you just exactly expressed a lack of alignment. If you had alignment, you knew what you wanted. So you thought you wanted something, and then let's say you made it happen. And then you're like, okay, but I didn't want it to happen that way, and I want it to happen a little different. But what I mean is I want it that way, but I don't want it that way, and I do want it different, but I don't want it different. That's lack of alignment. Alignment is when you know what you want, and you know the details of it. And you don't have those details, you don't have that alignment. So you're trying to do expression without alignment. You're trying to make changes without actually connecting to the source. And that's why even if you're going to see things change, but they're not going to be the way you wanted them to, well, then what's the whole point of the expression in the first place? So you first have to clean your desires. You don't have clean desires. You first have to clean your desires. Then you can work on expression. But you're wanting to do the end thing. It's like, it's like saying to someone, if you're a millionaire, you're able to stand on the street and have no worries. You're like, oh, if I'm a millionaire, I'll stand on the street and have no worries. So you go to the street and you stand there. And then you say, why do I still have worries? It's like, oh, we said you still have to first become a millionaire, and then when you're standing on the street, you won't have worries. But you're trying to redo the result. Stop trying to do the result and understand you have to go through the process first, and stop trying to skip phases. If you go through the phases and you become internally rich, then you can stand on the street and have no worries.
And this, like the aligned expression is only after the parsa? Like after the parsa, I can get aligned expression?
After the parsa, you get a taste of expression, but you only get a state of expression after endocorrection. So get to work.
Thanks.
All right, I think we'll stop here and enter the after party.